I've lived in this house for over a decade. It's not a mansion, but it's mine. Quiet street, big yard, a few mature trees that have been here longer than most of us. And then there's the white pine. That tree wasn't just a tree, it was part of the view, part of my childhood, and part of my kids, too. Towering, healthy casting, the kind of shade that makes summer bearable. That thing had seen more backyard barbecues, snowfalls, and teenage heartbreaks than I could count. But none of that mattered to my neighbor. Her name's Dana, though everyone on the block just calls her Karen behind closed doors. The kind of person who thinks every HOA rule applies more to others than herself. She once called animal control on a squirrel she claimed was harassing her dog. You get the idea. Thing is, her backyard barely fits a grill and a lawn chair. Mine's a bit bigger, not a mansion like I said, but enough to feel the difference. That alone rubbed her the wrong way. You'd think I'd stolen her inheritance the way she looked at my yard. And then one day, out of nowhere, she decided that about 15 feet of my property wasn't mine. She claimed some old plat map said the land actually belonged to her, the part where the pine tree stood. She was so sure of herself, she had a fence built right through my yard without a word to me. Just woke up one Saturday, and there it was, like she'd claimed a piece of the moon. Now, I'm not one to shout over the fence. I went to the town, filed a complaint, and had a proper surveyor come out. Turns out, surprised the original boundary lines were correct. Karen had no claim. The town told her to tear the fence down and leave the property lines alone. She didn't take that well. She marched up to my door, tried to guilt me into giving her the land, said I didn't need it like she did, that it would mean the world to her if I just let her have it. When I asked why, she didn't even have an answer, just stood there fuming, calling me greedy before stomping off like a kid denied an extra scoop of ice cream. I figured that was the end of it. Just a strange chapter in the book of suburban life. Boy, was I wrong. A few months later, I took my kids on a short spring break trip, a little reward for good grades and staying out of trouble. We were 4 days into the trip when I got a phone call. I assumed it was work. I was still answering the occasional email. But it wasn't my office. It was a law firm. A tree on my property, they said, had fallen onto a neighbor's house. And apparently, I was being sued for damages. I was stunned. No storms had passed through, no wild winds or anything like that. The tree they were talking about, yeah, it was that tree, the white pine, the one Dana had hated for years. We cut the trip short. The kids were disappointed, but they handled it better than I expected. Maybe they could tell something serious was going on. Maybe they were just used to my bad neighbor stories by now. When we got home, what I saw hit like a punch to the chest. The white pine, my white pine, was gone. Or rather, it was lying across Karen's house. Crushed her back porch, split part of the roof clean open. And there was no doubt about it. The tree didn't fall. It was cut. A clean chainsaw slice across the stump. Fresh sawdust on the ground like it had just happened. Karen's insurance had apparently refused the claim. She told them it was my tree and my fault that I'd hired someone to remove it and they botched the job. But here's the thing. I had receipts, literally. Vacation receipts, dated photos, hotel logs, even security cam timestamps. I wasn't anywhere near that tree when it fell, so I lawyered up. We sent everything, pictures of the cut stump vacation proof, all of it straight to her legal team. Instead of backing down, they changed the story. Now, Karen was claiming I'd hired a sketchy tree service under the table with no permits. And when it went wrong, the crew ran off and I hid in my house like a coward. It was like watching a bad soap opera in real time. In court, she kept digging herself deeper, testified that she saw the men cutting the tree, said I ignored her knocking at my door right after the crash. Then my lawyer stepped up with the vacation timeline security footage and a smile that said, "We got you." He leaned in and said, "You realize lying under oath is perjury, right? You could go to jail for this." That's when Dana broke, right there in court. Said, "Fine, I hired the guys, but it was their tree. They should still be responsible." I almost laughed. She hired unlicensed workers off the books to cut my tree without my consent while I was out of state. And when it landed on her house, she tried to sue me. That's when the dominoes started falling. Turns out she didn't get a permit, which is mandatory in our town for any tree removal, especially something as old as a white pine. The company she used, not even a real company, just a couple guys with chainsaws and a truck. She ended up fined by the city, and I filed a counterclaim for the full value of the tree. Now you're probably thinking, how much can a tree possibly be worth? Turns out, a lot. They brought in an arborist who specialized in valuation. Between the species' age, size, condition, and rarity, he appraised it at $240,000. Yeah, 240 grand for one tree. And I sued her for every last penny. The court ruled in my favor. She had to pay not just for the tree, but also stump removal and legal fees. And because she didn't have the money, it came in monthly installments, just enough to cripple any plans she had for fixing her house properly. They patched the roof with mismatched shingles, rebuilt part of the wall with what looked like scrap materials. It was like a child had drawn a house, and another kid tried to color it, and it stood out like a scar. Meanwhile, I planted a new white pine, a sapling that'll take decades to grow, sure. But it felt right, like the story wasn't over. I used a little of the settlement to add a deck out back, got a grill, bought the kids a trampoline they'd been asking about. All of it in perfect view of Karen's back window. She'd stare, sometimes arms crossed, face twisted, like she'd sucked on a lemon. I'd just wave smile and say, "Beautiful day, huh?" She tried to spin it later. Told neighbors I bankrupted her, that her kids were suffering, that I sued her for no reason. But no one bought it. Folks already knew who she was. Her reputation didn't need much help. People came to me instead, asking what really happened, and I had no problem telling them. She avoided me after that. Walked the long way to her car. Looked the other direction during block events, and I didn't mind one bit. Sometimes the best revenge isn't yelling or breaking things. Sometimes it's planting a new tree and waving from the porch with a beer in your hand, while the person who tried to destroy you realizes they destroyed themselves instead. But hey, let me ask you this. Was I too harsh? Should I have given her a break after she confessed? Or did she get exactly what she had coming? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear it all. Would love to know how you'd have handled a neighbor like this. And if you've ever had your own Karen moment, don't be shy, share it. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell. We've got more real stories coming your way.